Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you will call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit,
Bible says that Lot, in seeing and in hearing, he vexed his righteous soul. Because there are people here who don't have children, there are people here who don't have husbands, there are people here who don't even have money. Wherever you go, and the message does not bring the faith out of you, in seeing. That is why where you go to church is important. That is why who is your friend is important. Because when you cannot see, you still can create an environment that can cause you to see. And so I came to tell you that from today, it is not capital you need. It is good words in your ears that you are not a failure because you have failed, but you are a failure because you have decided to remain in failure. When you are down, don't listen to messages that keeps you down, but when you are down, start listening to messages that will lift you up and tell you, my enemies rejoice not over me, for when I fall I shall rise again, and when I sit in darkness the Lord shall be a light unto me. In every situation you find yourself, it is what you hear and what you see. My message on in seeing and in hearing. Tell 3 people, in seeing and in hearing. Come on, tell about 10 people. Rise up, tell about 10 people. Tell them, in seeing and in hearing. Having eyes does not guarantee your sight. There is a clear difference between having eyes and having sight. There are a lot of people that have eyes, but they don't have sight. And without sight, you cannot have insight. I have come to understand in life that your father not taking you to school is not responsible for your failure. I have come to understand in life that your mother not taking good care of you is not responsible for your failure. I think I've come to a place in life to conclude that you are responsible for your failure. And so I advance on my message in seeing and in hearing. Zooming in on in seeing. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 18. Can you read it for me?
Matthew chapter 8, reading from the verse 18.
Matthew chapter 8, verse 18.
Now when Jesus saw great multitude about him, he gave commandment to depart unto the other side. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee wheresoever thou goest. And Jesus said unto him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man had not where to lay his head. And another of his disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. But Jesus said unto him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead.
I'll try to bring in a lot of characters for you to understand that you could even walk with Jesus and be deficient. Jesus could be standing by you. Jesus could be your driving force. In fact, Jesus could be holding your hand and you still could be hovering around defeat. So it is not about who stands before you, but it is about how you see who stands before you. Can you imagine Jesus seeing a great multitude and then giving a command for every one of them to leave and to depart? Then there was a particular scribe who came to Jesus and he said, Teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go.
That is to say, make a step, and I'll follow your footsteps. And Jesus said, are you very sure of what you want to say and your decision? Jesus says, 4 6 have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. I am the Son of Man, I have nowhere to lay my head. Are you sure you want to follow me? This man's decision was not known. We are still left in a limbo whether this man still followed Christ, although he's the ultimate and the all in all. And then another disciple, also being a disciple of Jesus, not part of the multitude, said, Lord, let me go home first to bury my father, because my father is dead. He was a disciple. He had been segregated from the multitude. But look at the response. The disciple also says to Jesus, let me first go and bury my father, forgetting that here stands the resurrection and the life. And yet he was a disciple. And how you can be a disciple standing before Jesus and you ask permission to go bury your father, and yet the resurrection and the life stands before you. I want to establish this, that it is not who stands before you that matters, but it is how you see who stands before you. Is it not very interesting and depressing when we realize that Africa is so rich in terms of natural resources and human capacity? And yet, look at this analogy. Ghana, I think, is the second largest world producing cocoa. We produce almost $2 billion worth of cocoa every year. We just produce it and we export the seedlings to Belgium, to Switzerland. And in less than 6 months, the $2 billion value is turned into $120 billion. And yet we just exported $2 billion. We are so rich, but we don't see it. We export raw gold and we import it 20 times the price. How Christ, the resurrection and the life, can be standing before you and you are telling him, let me go and bury my father first. How you can have an opportunity, how you can have a door opened, and yet you cannot maximize your opportunities. Why? Because you cannot see. But I pray that after this, the Lord shall open your eyes, that you shall not just have eyes, but you shall have eyes to see. Tell 5 people in this place, I pray God gives you eyes to see. In Jeremiah chapter 1, let's read from the verse 8 right to the verse 11.
Be not afraid of their faces.
God was speaking to Jeremiah, a renowned prophet who was identified by God even in the womb. And God told him, you are a prophet even in the womb of mommy. And then look at the processes God takes him through.
Be not afraid of their faces.
Don't be afraid of their faces, because whether you like it or not, there are people with all kinds of faces that you are going to encounter. Tell your neighbor their faces. Tell your neighbor their faces. Come on, give him some good face. Give him or her some good face. Let him see your face. There are some faces that can intimidate you. There are some faces that can take your vision away. But God told Jeremiah, don't be afraid of their faces. Because in the face is somebody's eye. Because when you look at their faces, they have eyes that if you are not careful, their eyes will suppress your eyes. Their prosperity may intimidate your future. Their opportunity will be a message against your opportunity. Oh, I wish I was speaking to myself. Tell your neighbor, don't be afraid of their faces. I wish you rise up and tell about 5 people, don't be afraid of their faces. Don't be afraid of their faces. Read it.
Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with
You see,
thee.
I told you last week, if you are part of this church and you don't have money to buy a car, money to buy a house, money to travel abroad, there is something called confidence that you don't pay for. You've got to develop it in this house. Because even God understands that there are people, as you meet them, they have faces that can intimidate you. They have accomplishments that can intimidate you. For those of you who were in church last week, I told you that most faces are not real faces. They are masks. You meet them and it's like they are giving you a testimony. And they are telling you, have you seen my latest car? Not because they are testifying, but they want you to remember that you were a failure and they are victors. They will just tell you, oh, I was just in Dubai. From Dubai, I went to America. In fact, I was in America for 4 hours and I went to Suriname. In fact, I spent 4 days in Suriname. And from Suriname, I found myself in Afghanistan. And when they finish speaking, you look at yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself, did I come on a cruise or I came on tourism in the world? And they make you feel like you are nobody. But let me tell you, for all you know, they were in Cote d'Ivoire. They never went to Dubai. They were never in America. They were never in Australia. Don't allow their faces to intimidate you. Look into the mirror and speak to your own face and tell yourself, Victor, arise and shine, for I know the future that God has for you. Don't allow their faces to intimidate you. Tell your neighbor, don't be afraid of their faces. Read it, read it, read it.
Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Lord. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth.
Watch this. When God finished speaking to him, he himself put forth his hands to touch his mouth.
Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said unto me, behold,
watch this.
I have put my words into thy mouth.
When he finished touching his mouth, he said, behold. When he finished touching his mouth, he said, look. The meaning of behold is look. It doesn't matter the purposes for God for your life. If you don't look, you will miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't concentrate and have an eyes that can see, in this time and age, you are going to fail. Ladies and gentlemen, after God touched his mouth, he said, behold. Read it.
Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have these days set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms.
Look. This is a young man, and it is believed he was around 12 years old, who had been identified by God. And whilst God sees him, and God touches his mouth, and God said, behold, he advances by saying that for where you are and for where you should be, there is no synchrony. In fact, they don't rhyme. But then he moves on to say to him that I have set you over the nations. And that is why it is important to see, for God to say, hey, don't look focused, see. Where you are standing and where you should be have no synchrony, but see. Don't wait until you get there. See. You are surely going to be over nations, but before you get on to control the nations, God said, see. Read it. Read it.
See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant.
Verse 11.
Verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou?
Oh, is it not interesting? So, after all these workout on Jeremiah, after God would diffuse a lot of infusions from him, after God will deactivate a lot of the activations in him, and God had told him, see, I have set thee over the nations. I have made you a voice over kingdoms. And then God comes to a place and asks Jeremiah again, what do you see? Come on, after this message, if I come back to you and ask you, what do you see? What will your response be? Because at every stage of your life, you've got to see. Tell 5 people, at every stage of your life, you've got to see. Rise up and talk to 5 people. When we go to church and we ask you to stand and some people cannot stand, you just suspect them. Suspect them. And then if you realize, after God finishes dealing with the sight of the prophet Jeremiah, Jeremiah now begins to see. And now he's seeing an almond tree. I won't talk about it. Let's open our Bibles to the book of Genesis, chapter 30. And we are reading from the verse 30 through to the 43. Genesis, chapter 30. We are reading from the verse 30. Read it for me.
Genesis chapter 30, reading from the verse 30. For it was little which thou had before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord had blessed thee since my coming. And now, when I shall provide for my own house also. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all the flocks today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hair.
You see, you understand that there are cycles in the life of Jacob. He had met his own uncle called Laban. The uncle had 2 kids. One was Leah, the other was Rachel. And Jacob is interested in Rachel, but there is a custom that has to be interpreted to him. But unfortunately for him, he had an uncle that would rather let circumstances explain and dictate what the customs were, whereby he could have sat him down and explained it to him. So he went through circumstances and obstacles for 7 solid years, thinking that he was going to have Rachel to marry, only to be disappointed. And that was when the customs of the family was made bare to him. And he said, yes, I will still be consistent, because what I am looking for is not Leah, but what I am looking for is Rachel. I don't know what you are looking for in life. There are some of you, because you don't see anything, you settle for anything. But I came to challenge you this morning that you've got to know what you want to go for. Don't just settle down for anything that comes your way. So far as you have eyes, you can see. You've got to see what you want to see. What he was seeing and viewing and targeting was Rachel and not Leah. And so when he was given the wrong wages for the right work, the Bible said, he said, I will not relent. I will still push forward until I see Rachel in my life. Some of you should build up your inner tenacity. You should build up your inner strength. If what you see is not what you have, don't let their faces intimidate you. Rise up and say, to you it might be a testimony, but to me that is not my testimony. Oh, I wish I could speak to myself better. Ooh. If you don't know what you want, they will give you what they want. If you don't have a vision, if you don't have a drive, if you don't have a focus, if you cannot see, watch this, I said, age should not be a barrier. Age should not. At what age did Abraham become a father? At what age did Mary become a mother? At what age did Zachariah become a father? At what age did Caleb take nations? Your age should never be a barrier. If you can see, I told you last week that the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken was broke at the age of 60, but by 82 he was a billionaire. Don't let anybody tell you because you are 40 years, compromise, have a boyfriend. No! Drive towards your vision, and it will amaze you that the God that you serve will bring to pass whatever promises he has promised your life. It is not about your age, it is about what you see. Ask your neighbor, what do you see? Oh, I think you can do better. Ask your neighbor, what do you see? President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo became a president at the age of 71. He had always wanted to be a president. That was his dream. Right from the age of 2, he was told, you can't become a president. And he worked towards becoming the president. At the age of 71, he's the president of our nation. And some of you are just 50 years. You are throwing in the towel. You are 40 years. Because ministry is not going the way you want it to go. You are throwing in the towel. Some of you are just 40 years. You feel that life is still over. No! I told you in my book, Wisdom Capsules, I said, failure is not failure because you failed, but it is failure because you decided to live and to stay and to be resident in failure. You are not a failure because you failed last week. You are not a failure because you see, everybody said I was a failure because I failed examinations. But did that make you a failure? And that is what God means by telling you, don't be afraid of their faces. Because some of you are in the universities. The lecturer said, if you don't take me as a boyfriend, I will fail you. And because you don't have a vision, you go and sleep with something that is awful. And you live a life of regret. The fact that the lecturer fails you does not mean you are a failure. There is something better for you than the examination result. And that is why some of you have no examination results. But I came to tell you, after Christ, the most important thing is what you see. What do you see? What do you see? Tell us about 10 people. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Watch it. Watch this. It's becoming interesting as I develop my message. Do you know that everything we see here today was non-existent? The light was not in existence. This fan was not in existence. In fact, this building was not in existence. I remember when we located this place and I wanted us to move in here. Then it was very difficult. It was a battle. I thank God for the lives of some people like Deacon Kwabena and Mr. Fosu. We came here, it was a bush. Everybody said we cannot come here. And I nearly got disappointed. And I remember they called me and said, Papa, it is not us, it is you. What do you see? I said, what I see is that we can take over the place. They said, then let us go. We are ready to support you. If you allow people to see for you, because our test buttons are different, our visibility are different. If you allow me to decide for you and to have an eye for you, you have started failing because our senses are not the same. Oh, I wish I was speaking to myself. You see, the beauty of life is our taste is not the same, our senses are not the same. And that is why what you don't like is what somebody loves to the maximum. And that is the beauty of life. Somebody's desire is to have the latest Hyundai. And there are people, if you give them Hyundai, they will throw it away. So there are people, what they love most is sports car. Give them Porsche, they love it. And there are some people, what they love most is Land Cruiser. That is the beauty of life. So that Hyundai can have sales, Land Cruiser can have sales, Toyota can have sales, so that Bend Down Boutique can have sales, designers can have sales, fake things can have sales, so that life will be bearable. And that is why you should never allow people's vision to be your vision. And that is why it is an indictment on you when you allow what they see about you to be who you are. If I don't ask you to clap and you are clapping, you better clap well. Watch this. If you can see right, you can get right. What you need is not money, but what you need is your ability to see. Watch Jacob. He crossed the river with just a staff in his hands. But as I touch on his message, you realize that he will come with a great possession. He had nothing, but he saw right. He had the power of vision because he knew that his duty was to see, and the Christ in him will bring into manifestation what he saw. It is not your duty to bring to pass what you see. It is his duty to bring to pass what you see. Because Christ in you, the hope of glory. I believe every one of you know who invented the bulb. There was a time in this world that there was nothing like bulbs. There were only lanterns. But one day a gentleman sat down called Thomas Edison and said, no, I think we can do better. There could be better things in life. And if you read a bit about Thomas Edison, you will realize that everybody was trying to discourage him, to letting him think that this is an impossibility. Because in this life, whatever is inexistent is seen as an impossibility. And that is why when you have God, the second entity you need is yourself. Because when God tells you and you believe it, it doesn't matter who is around you. If you can drive towards it, I came to tell you as a prophet of God that it is possible. It is possible. And how Thomas Edison did it, it is still a mystery. Today we've been able to build upon it to an extent that we even have solar light. Because light was not in existence, but somebody saw light when there was no light. In your situation, what do you see? In your family, what do you see? There is no light. But somebody said, I'm going to see better than every other person sees. There's somebody called Charles Babbage. In fact, he invented computers. At first, when you go to offices, there are some people's offices that needed all kinds of warehouses. But he said, can't we transmit and transform the information in this paper into something very simple? When he was sharing his ideas, everybody thought this was an impossibility. Watch this. When you can see and you are driving towards what you see, when people are around you who don't see it, they will not understand why you will live and die for what you see. If I don't ask you to clap and you are clapping, you better clap well. There was no computer. There are some of you, you can create the computers of your family. There are some of you who can create the computers of your future. It is inexistent, but you can create it. What do you see? Or you just want to settle for anything? I have seen a lot of women say, already said the Messi Atina bread, ye minya di ukroda ni nebi a mefanisa. One way ye krobi a ube miano. Unya di ukroda ni nebi a ube shiano krane kroni intui. Na osha se ushiana. Na umia krona na asha se tu. What do you see? You see, we live in an environment and in a society that if you don't see anything, the society is comfortable with you. But the moment you begin to see, they'll say, oh, you are proud. Oh, you are proud. We've got to define pride as it is. Pride has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. When we talk about pride, it has nothing to do with you. It is about how you relate to people and thinking yourself higher than them. That is what pride is. But when you have the confidence and you are prayed and you have a drive, you have a vision, you know I didn't bargain for Leah, I bargained for Rachel. And they give you Leah. You want to stand up because you are not for Leah, you are for Rachel. You want to rise up and go for what you believe. And that is why some of you should see higher and change even the educational dynamics around your life. Some of you should rise up for what you see. Oh, if I don't ask you to clap and you are clapping, you better clap well. What do you see? What do you see? You realize as I teach you next week to understand that. You can see and have it manifested. No, I'm not talking about what they think of what you see. Let's not go far. Did you see how people were ridiculing Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Just about 8, 10, 15, 20 years ago, his own party people. How can this man become a president over a dead body? And I pray that when they question where you are going and they say it shall be over their dead body, may you see the barrier of their dead bodies, because it will surely come to pass over their dead bodies in the name of Jesus. Over their dead bodies. Say, this guy can become a president over my dead body. Thank God. Prepare for their funeral ceremony. I thank God you shall be present at their Thanksgiving service, because it will surely occur over their dead bodies. Some said he was a short man, but I never saw a scale for presidency. And I never saw a caliper. A caliper is what is used to measure sizes and all that. I never saw a caliper. in presidencies. They can only use the caliper on you when you allow them to use it on you. See what you see. Because they are not going to be the implementers of what you see. They don't see the way you see. They'll disqualify, especially when they have dated you, they have married you, and they have jilted you, and you are single, and all that they wish is that you never get married. And they begin to question, this Subai says, Subai will say, Baba, over my dead body, she can never be married. But I pray that because of you, may there be a funeral for their lives. How the Bible says that he had worked for Rachel, but he was given Leah. Some of you have labored for Rachel, but you'll be given Leah. If you settle for Leah, that is your duty. But I pray that you package yourself and you know where you are driving towards. Because I said everything you see here, the church that you see here was as a result of what somebody saw. This building is as a result of what somebody saw. So you can also see to let it become a reality. When people were walking with their legs and they were sitting on donkeys and chariots, there was a gentleman in Germany. He was called Karl Benz. Karl Benz. He said, can't we do anything locomotive? That in the event that all donkeys die and all chariots are not usable, we can use that locomotive. So he started to see. He tried so many times, he failed. Let me tell you this. Some of you have tried so many times, you have failed. Don't give up. Continue to see. Let me tell every one of you hearing my voice, failure is an opinion. Failure is not a condition. You might have tried and tried and tried, not until you realize what you see. Don't give up. Do you realize that 25 years ago, I was called a failure? Mommy out of love, mom. Grandma, out of love, said Victor, school now went to me and when you there, what boom abem. And that thing was always hunting me. And so I always stood in the mirror and told myself, no. She brought you into life, but I am taking you into life. She brought you to, I'm taking you into. There are two separate dynamics. And the fact that you failed 20 years ago will not make you a failure. You are not a failure because there have been failures. All you need to do is just to concentrate and focus and know where you are going to. And as a man who was declared a failure, who had Christ in me, the hope of glory, who has been able to be dragged to where I am, and still I'm seeing, I want to tell you today that begin to dream, begin to see, begin to have a focus, begin to have a purpose. But then as I develop it, I'll let you understand that it is not everybody you've got to share your dreams and your visions with. Because there are some people that if it will take you 1 month to realize your dream, they will complicate it into becoming 20 years. Don't let anybody influence what you see. If there is anything you see and hear, let it add up to where you want to be. Because for their own convenience and comfort, they will give every reason why you have to be where you are. But you know what I see? I see years to come. There are prophets in this house. There are evangelists in this house. I can see years to come. There are parliamentarians in this house. I can even see that there are presidents from this house. I don't care how they see you, but I prophesy over you that whatever you see, whatever your vision, I came to speak over your life and prophesy over your life that it is coming.
In the Lord, you may be going through some trials, and it seems like God is very far away. You have fasted, you have prayed, but it seems the more you pray, and the more your problems multiply for you, and you don't know what to do. But I have some news for you. All this God that you serve, He never lies, He never fails. He sees what you cannot